Hello, everybody, and welcome to our alumni panel. We're going to go ahead and start. There's going to be a lot of people joining us. We're very excited to have you today. My name is Elizabeth Trejos Castillo. I'm a faculty in the HDFS department. I'm also serving as the associate chair, and I will be the moderator for our panel today. So at this point, let me introduce the chair of the HDFS department, Dr. Ann Mastergeorge.
Thank you so much, Dr. Trejos. Dear colleagues and students, as Dr. Trejos mentioned, I am Ann Mastergeorge, and as Department Chair of Human Development and Family Sciences, I want to welcome you to our inaugural HDFS Alumni panel titled, What Can I Do with My HDFS Degree? The purpose of this panel is to provide an opportunity for all of you to meet some of our alumni, to get information about career paths, including some paths that might include graduate school, as well as gaining some tips about the interview process and more. As well as connecting with some of our alumni for networking. I want to, at this time, give a big thank you to our alumni panel for their time and participation with all of us today. And I will now turn it back over to Dr. Trejos, who will introduce our panel and facilitate the session.
Thank you, Dr. Mastergeorge. At this point, we'd also like to introduce Caroline Collins. She is the Assistant Director of External Relations and Human Development in the College of Human Sciences.
Hi, everybody. I'm so excited about this event, and I'm hoping to use this to inspire other departments to hold similar events where alumni get to speak to students about all the career paths that maybe they never even imagined for themselves. So thanks so much for our alumni for being here. Students, thank you for coming. If there's other alumni on the line that aren't on the panel, we're glad you're here too. And if connecting with the college post-graduation is something you want to talk more about, I am all ears and am open to discussing that with you. So I'm going to put my email in the chat. And if that described to you, please reach out to me. I would love to connect with you and hear ways that you want to stay engaged with the college and with your department, HDFS. So thanks. I'm super excited and can't wait to learn from all of you.
Thank you, Caroline. And now we're going to give our panelists a few seconds to introduce themselves, and I'm going to just call you by your names. The screen have a lot of people joining, so this is very exciting. Carla.
Hi, this is so cool. I am Carla Oliva. I'm the director of development for the ACLU of Texas. And I'm a proud 1988 graduate from the College of Human Development and Family Studies. I still say studies. So since the name change, I got to get in hip with the science now. But this is wonderful to be on. I'm excited to learn from everybody here on the call. And I have to just say, it is so nice to see some faces I haven't seen before. So hey, Mitzi.
Thank you, Carla.
So good to see you always.
Thank you, Carla. Keith?
Hi, everyone. I'm Keith Patrick. I'm the Director of Entrepreneurship and Innovation at Friendship ISD, so I'm still in Lubbock. I'm a 2007 graduate of HDFS. I also did, back then we called it Substance Abuse Studies, but ADRS I think is what it is now. And very excited to be here and talk to you a little bit about the things we're going to cover, but excited for you and what the future holds for you. And I'm glad that we're doing this and have a chance to all talk about what a great place you're in right now.
Thank you, Keith. Holly.
Hi, everyone. I'm Holly Wright. I am a full-time instructor in the Department of Human Development and Family Studies here at Texas Tech.
Thank you, Holly. Sharon?
You're muted, Sharon.
You're muted.
I'm so sorry. You'd think we have this figured out by now. I am having tech issues over here. I'm Sharon Bass, and I'm the Executive Director at the Volunteer Center of Lubbock, and so happy to get to be a part of this panel with you guys. Looking forward.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you. And Ashley?
Hi, everyone. I think I'm off of mute. Yes. I'm Ashley Reinhardt, and I'm class of 2008 HDFS with the early childhood degree. And I'm the founder and director of Wonderwell here in Austin. So if any of you are looking to come to Austin, next year or the following, please let me know. We're always hiring teachers.
Thank you, Ashley. So we're now going to get into the panel, but I just want to give you a little bit of details about how we're going to proceed. So we have different topics that we're going to be covering, and I'm going to be calling the panelists to provide their input. Once we're done with one topic, we would like to be able to accommodate 1 or 2 questions from the audience that are follow-ups to that topic. So we will encourage you that if you have a question that is related to the topic, please, you can just speak up, or you can put it in the chat. We'll be watching that as well. If there are no questions, we will move to the next topic. We also encourage you to please hold other questions until the end, so that we're going to have more time at the end to do a Q&A. And we would like to stay on track with the topics. So, but if there is any other questions that you would like to add, just feel free to put in the chat, or you can just speak up. So we're going to go ahead and start with our first question for the panelists. And we would like for you to tell us about your career path. We're going to go ahead and start with Carla. Carla, can you tell us about your career path?
Is it Carla or Carolyn? Sorry.
Carla.
Oh, me. Okay. You think I was like, I heard
Sorry,
it. And then
yeah. I hear an
Carolyn.
echo somewhere, so I don't know.
No.
Go ahead.
No problem. No. Actually, after graduating, I got married and moved to Midland, and started the process of looking for a job, and not exactly sure where I wanted, but I stayed in the nonprofit world and have continued to stay in the nonprofit world, just in different positions in that process. So I kind of went the route of nonprofit, which I think a lot of folks in our degree do, and we'll be happy. And I think as we move through some of the conversation today, I can talk a little bit more about what to expect if you go that route. And I think the old route of going into nonprofit is not what we're seeing in today's world of nonprofit work. So I'll be happy to talk more about that, but I kind of did the nonprofit route, mostly dealing with healthcare, working with low-income individuals, and now, of course, doing development work and raising money for a group.
Thank you, Carla. Keith, will you tell us a little bit about your career paths?
Sure. I came out of the college with no idea what I wanted to do. And so I knew that we had a really good, varied skill set, but I just didn't know exactly where I wanted to go. So it wasn't a preparation thing. It was identifying my desires. And at the end of my undergrad, I fell into a program in animal sciences that was a equine assisted therapy program and a certificate they had started. And so I kind of walked into that and added a year to school and did a minor and a certificate. And then that carried me into graduate school and ultimately into ag communications, and kind of a marriage of a lot of the things we did in HDFS and then the communication side, which led me into, similar to Carla, nonprofit and fundraising and human services types of jobs to start. And then I worked at the Rawls College of Business at Texas Tech, preparing students for careers and things like that. And then came to Friendship almost 6 years ago. And I have a really unique role, and I do a lot of in-person communications and grant writing and fundraising and community partnership building. And it's a really fun and interesting job. But my path has been circuitous, as I think a lot of people's are. And I learned that in HDFS, that comparing ourselves to others' journey and their path is not really a recipe for success. And so I left myself open to figure some things out as I went along, and it worked out, even if it didn't have it all figured out at 22. But I'm really, really happy with how it's gone. And by the way, don't run off to Austin and go work for Ashley. Lubbock is a great place to be also.
That's a great segue, Keith, to ask Ashley now about her career paths.
I have to be honest, I love Lubbock. So, yes, we had some of y'all's weather recently and a pipe burst at Wonderwell. So we were underwater. But anyway, people certainly aren't used to that kind of weather down here. So I graduated in 2008 and I had a wonderful experience at the CDRC, writing my core and observing and having my case study student. And y'all, I learned so much from that experience that I still take with me every single day with my own children at home and also here. And just about, how to talk to and with children. And I tell everyone, I think Texas Tech has the best early childhood program because we learn the whys behind the behaviors of our children. And I stand firmly by that. If I could hire another Texas Tech teacher, I would. So I graduated in 2008 and I remember my capstone professor at Texas Tech saying to ask for the job. And I kind of let that marinate for a little bit. And I thought, okay, I need to take him up on this. So I flew down to Houston to a job fair for Spring Branch. It was back in the day when COVID was not a problem. And I did that. I asked for the job. I really wanted a kindergarten position. And my principal would laugh about it because he was like, you were not going back to Lubbock until I basically hired you. So I taught there for 3 years. And then I applied to go to graduate school at the University of Texas here in Austin. And I want to share that they have an excellent graduate program too. I'm a Red Raider first though, and always. But I learned that my passion, I went to graduate school for instructional technology. When I was in Spring Branch, I really enjoyed teaching the teachers how to use their active boards, smart boards, that kind of thing. And I thought I wanted to do instructional technology. So I applied to the IT program at UT and I was accepted, and we had to take 2 elective classes, and one of them was a supervision of teaching course. And I started supervising teachers in their student teaching semester, and I loved it. And I thought, okay, wow, this is what I really want to do. So teacher education became my passion. And then my wonderful father sold his company in 2014. And he and his mother, my grandmother, and I have her diploma right up there from 1942. They're all about education and especially early childhood education. So we put our heads together and we started designing and building this school. And building in the city of Austin put about 20 years on my life. They want to save every branch and tree, which, hey, that's a good thing, but it was a lot. But yeah, so my journey definitely has evolved, and I tried to keep an open mind through the process, but my passion evolved too.
Thank you, Ashley. So can we hear from Sharon about your career path?
Sure. I graduated from University of Texas in Austin in 1971. And I started teaching elementary school, and I loved it. And I thought way before now, you can tell I'm old. I thought I'd be the superintendent of schools somewhere. I was all in on teaching school. Well, a few years, probably 3 or 4 years into teaching, there's the requirement that you do continuing education. And we had moved to Lubbock, and I thought, I don't want to take more education classes. There was this new program at Tech in human development, and I think I'll do that. Well, I needed to be in the master's program in order to take anything additional to what I'd already done. So I got accepted, and really was just for fun. I was just going to take these classes to fulfill that thing. And I was like, wow, this is really interesting. This is really fun. And I continued teaching, and I continued taking a couple classes a semester, and just really fell in love with what I was learning, and in a way that I love teaching school, but this was such a new way of thinking about things. Ended up getting my master's over a lot, many years time. Most of the people that I was in the program with got their PhDs over the time I was getting my master's. And in the meantime, we had a family that had 2 little boys, and I decided that I wanted to stay home with them, so I didn't miss their tricks, and that I'd go back to teach at some point. Well, I didn't ever go back to teaching. I got very involved in community volunteering, and kind of was on that path. And then I've done a bunch of jobs. I helped an OB-GYN open an office practice, hiring and I did that for 2 years. I worked as the director of religious education at my church they needed somebody to do it for a couple years. And then in 1995, I got the opportunity for a 1-year part-time job at the Volunteer Center of Lubbock. And I got here, and I was like, wow, this is really a good fit for who I am and what I like to do. And it brings everything I've ever done, all those, random pieces together. And so I started working here at the Volunteer Center. I've been the ED here since 2003. And I will tell you that every day, literally every day in my personal life, as a wife of a person, I've been married 51 years this year, as the mother of 2 great young men and the grandmother of 2 wonderful little girls. So on a personal level, what I got out of this program it literally changed my life in a way it never would have happened. And on a professional level, it has too, because this is a degree that you can absolutely, I think, do anything in the world with. And there has never been a better time to have the skill set that you all are coming out of. The world needs you in all kinds of places. Just thinking about mental health over the last year. You all have skills that can plug into any business on the planet, I believe, and make an asset. So I've certainly used what I've gotten, but you all have limitless, really, possibilities on what you can do with what you're doing.
Thank you, Sharon. And can we hear from Holly about your career paths?
If I can unmute myself, yes. Yeah, for me, so I took the graduate route as well. So I had a bachelor's in psychology, and I really had no idea what to do with that. And so I found HDFS at TTU, and I want to just piggyback on Ashley's comment about the CDRC. That is one of the best resources and tools I just want to say that we have at this university, and it is such a great piece for those of you who are interested in early childhood or teaching in any way. I just wanted to plug that in there. But for me, I didn't really know, even in graduate school. I went in wanting to get a degree to see what I could do with that. I was interested in research and wanted to really kind of follow that path. But while I was in graduate school, had opportunities for teaching. And so I really fell in love with the classroom. And so I will say that even in graduate school, you don't always know what you want to do. And it was in that process that I really found, again, my passion. And really my goal for the rest of my life is to stay in the classroom and teach and pass on the passion for this field. So now I've been a full-time instructor at Texas Tech now for almost 3 years, which blows my mind. But yeah, I think the most recent graduate. I got my PhD in 2018. So yeah, that's my path. Here I am.
Thank you, Holly, and thank you all for providing us with that background. As you can see, there is just great diversity and many different wonderful stories to tell and to share. We're going to jump into our next question. How to start initial contacts and conversations with potential employers? So, Ashley, will you tell us more, some tips about that?
So this is obviously a little bit different right now with the pandemic, but I do see some changes starting to happen. For example, we're doing Zoom tours, and it's instead of having parents come in the building. But with interviewing, I have to be honest, I'm still interviewing in person. And we also have a working interview that we've started here at Wonderwell, because it's just such a big commitment, right, on your side as the prospective applicant, and on our side as your prospective employer. And so I encourage you to ask questions. Don't think, any question is too silly or too novice. Ask questions. Hey, is there a time maybe after school hours, right when school ends, to come in and look around? And you want to also show that, to go the extra mile. So yes, there's all this virtual interviewing. Some of you may have even already engaged in that, but don't be afraid to ask for that in-person meeting. And also ask to meet, people that you would be working with. I think that's so important, your happiness and their happiness, and making sure that's a fit. So my biggest takeaway for that is don't be afraid to ask questions.
Thank you, Ashley. Holly, will you give us some tips?
I think just kind of on that too is also researching where you're interviewing, like knowing about their goals, what are their objectives, like just knowing that information can also help you bring questions to them too. And I just think that's one of the biggest things that I took away from any kind of interviews I've done in general, is just knowing where you're interviewing, what is it that they're about, and that can just give you some insight too.
Thank you, Holly. Sharon?
Well, I'll build on what Holly just said. I think researching the places that you're interested in and that you think might be a good fit for you is a great place to start. Going to job fairs. I know we regularly go to events at Tech that are recruiting events. Connecting with an organization as an intern, I think is a great first step to try out. You're not locked into something forever, and see, do you like it, and see what kind of environment fits you, and what kind of people you like to work with, and the environment that you like to work in, and what kind of a boss you're looking for, and what your expectations are. Because one of the things that we always tell folks interviewing with us is that we're interviewing you, but you're also interviewing us. And if people don't get down the road very far with us at all, if they don't come in with some knowledge of what the Volunteer Center is, who we are, because we think if they didn't hear enough to know what we are and have some questions, then they're not going to be a fit for us. And also that they have questions for us. We want to know that they want to know us and about us. So those would be what I would say. It's a dual process. You're both finding a good fit, the place and you guys.
Thank you, Sharon. How about you, Keith?
I look at everything kind of from the standpoint of relationships, and they're very powerful when you're looking for a job. And so I think all of the advice is a great way also to build those relationships. Internships are a great way to make inroads into the industry you're interested in and meet new people. And honestly, just applying and interviewing for jobs can be a great way to make new connections. Not every job interview is a competition for the job. It's as Sharon said, you're both interviewing each other and you're looking for the right fit. You may leave an interview having left a fantastic impression on someone who would then be a reference, a recommendation, a new connection in the industry, even though the position wasn't the right fit or whatever. Sharon and I actually met and got to know each other as we have in the community because we sat down and talked about a job for a while, and she explained her whole vision for the volunteer center. It wasn't, and what it does, it wasn't the right fit for us together, but we've become great friends over the years and colleagues in the community. And so I would kind of leave you with the nobody's going to do it for you mentality. You have to get out and proactively make relationships and look for opportunities. And I hesitate to use the word aggressive, but you do have to be really proactive to meet folks and to ask for good references and not just hope it falls in your lap. That's how you're going to get where you want to be. And also, the last thing I'll mention is just knowing yourself and what you bring to the table. Walking into an interview and waiting for an interviewer to pull out of you who you are and what you want and what you believe, I think is the worst place to start. If you come in knowing those things about yourself, and then you're really digging deeper, and it's a great relationship kind of conversation, which will make you a lot happier as you dig in.
Thank you, Keith. And Carla, can you give us some tips?
I don't know that I have a whole lot to add after all of that, because I kind of agree with what everyone said. Building a little off Keith, it is a lot about relationships and creating some new ones. And I'm with Keith. I don't know the right word here, because it's not necessarily, I don't mean you have aggressive, but it is knowing yourself and knowing what you want, and also being flexible in that process a little bit, because you may look at something and take something that's not necessarily 100% all the bells and whistles, making the whatever you want to make and all of that, but it might put you in the path to move towards something you're wanting, and being able to have a little bit of flexibility with that. But I think creating opportunities for conversations, and sometimes they occur in the weirdest places with friends, family, folks you don't even know, just being open, doing your homework, looking at a group that you're really interested in working with, doing your homework, looking at their website, who's employed, what kind of positions are available, and what the company's all about, making sure that's a fit. And kind of like what Keith said, sometimes you interview, I think it's real important to practice interview, but sometimes you interview and you walk away going, well, it's not really for me. And that's okay, because I think it gives you good experience. So that'd be my 2 cents.
One thing that, Carla, you made me think of, I wanted to say too, never pass on the opportunity to build a relationship with anyone. And the last one, the people that you're in school with right now will be people you're working alongside and crossing paths with in your career forever. And so build good relationships in school and in classes and with professors. But you never, and I'm not saying collect people for what they can do for you later, but just always realize the world is much smaller than you think, and you never know what bridge you're burning or what bridge you're building, whoever it is, and regardless of what it looks like on the front side.
I want to piggyback real quick on something Keith said that I want to share with you all that I think is so important. When you're asking for a reference, I think the right verbiage, instead of may I use you, that kind of thing, is may I list you or include you as a strong reference for my enlisted out work ethic, my relationships with my students. Be specific and ask for a strong and good reference. Don't assume, because I can tell on my end now, what's kind of a generic reference letter versus something that's really tailored to that person's strengths. So ask for what you want and need.
Now, I'm going to say yes, Ashley, yes on that, because I just hired a couple of folks, and I asked, I don't want to say hard questions, but I asked intriguing questions during interviews. but I also ask it of the references too. And I really look at the questions I ask them and how, I don't want to talk to somebody that says, yeah, they're really good. I mean, I want to know about their work and their work ethic and what type of work they do. And I give situations. How would you think this employee would work in this situation? And, so you want people that can really speak to your work.
I just want to say on that too, like a lot before the interview process, a lot of what they see is on paper. So being able to put that on paper, I think is so important. And also, like, can be hard to write about yourself, but you have to really believe in yourself too, and put in there, like, show them why you are a good candidate, and just believe in that. And that the goal on the references too, like giving them information about, here's my resume, here's all this, but building those relationships even before you ask for that reference is key. Like I think Ashley mentioned, like there are generic letters of references, like it's pretty obvious, but when you build that relationship, you work with that reference, they can really put in details about what are your strengths, why are you good for this position. So just thinking about that ahead of time is important, I think.
Well, thank you all. Those tremendous tips for our audience and our participants today. As I'm reflecting on what you were mentioning and the word aggressive, I always like to say that we want to be intentional. You really want to be intentional in what you do when you plan, when you meet with people. So keep that in your minds. At this point, we can accommodate 1 or 2 questions follow up for what we just talked about, or we can move into the next topic. Any takers, any questions? If you want to wait till the end, that's totally fine. Okay, so let's move into the next question. This is a fun one. We would like for our panelists to share some experiences when you have to think outside of the box. So we're going to start with Sharon.
Well, this year has been outside of the box. Last year at this time, I was at the Volunteer Center being in the middle of in-person day-long workshops with leadership programming. And we became remote the middle of March, and we still are working remotely. We didn't have any idea we could work remotely. We didn't have any idea it would last this long. We didn't know if we were set up to do that. So everything we do and have done at the Volunteer Center has changed over the last year. People stopped being able to welcome volunteers. It wasn't safe to do. We have literally changed every program that we do and the way we do it. And so that has been, on the one hand, really challenging, but it's been extremely exhilarating. And what we've come up with, some of the things that we've done, I think have been very impactful, and coming out of this, that we may keep on doing a lot of this. We reach a whole different audience by doing what we're doing right now with Zooming. People are able to engage in a different way, and you hear a lot of, oh, I'm sick of this, I hate this, I don't, meh, 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 meh. I think it's kept us all sane and alive if we've really tapped in to these opportunities to connect how we're connecting right now. So wow, it's just it being open to thinking outside the box, I think, has saved us. And the folks that are flourishing now are people that have been open to that. It's the only way we are not getting swept away with all of this.
Thank you, Sharon. Seems like our box has grown exponentially since we are being during the pandemic. Carla, will you give us some experiences that when you have to think outside of the box?
I've been sitting here thinking, and actually before we got on the call, because I knew a rumor that you probably were going to ask us this. I think if I, like, just off the top of my head, when I'm thinking outside the box in my job, being in development and philanthropy, I'm very much a person to person. I mean, I like to sit at a table with someone and talk to them about their giving. So the whole, very much like Sharon, this whole pandemic has changed how that occurs, and not necessarily in a bad way. With Zoom and other ways of us talking, I still sit at the table with them, but I'm more likely to be sitting at a couch with them because a lot of our folks are just sitting on the couch with their laptop talking. And it's enabled us to see much more on a personal level with a donor. I get to see dogs and cats and grandkids and pictures of family, and we get a much deeper conversation in my position dealing with someone and their giving. I'm able to see what's important to them because you're seeing their home. And so it's kind of been a little different thinking outside the box, how you visit with folks. And, you know, originally, no one wanted to do Zoom right at the beginning because I think some folks were just like, I'm not doing this Zoom. We're, you know, and then as we got into the pandemic, it was the only way we could really connect one-on-one with in a lot of ways. So now, I think it's going to be an interesting process. You know, I think us staying in this Zoom type life for a while here, but as we move back out of it and into the personal, I've gotten the opportunity now to see some of my folks that are in our portfolio or that are donors to us on a much personal level. I mean, and you know, it doesn't get any more personal than when you're on Zoom and you have the cat hanging out in the background and, you know, all of that. So that's probably one of the things I'd say where you had to think outside the box a little bit about how you're going to do your job. But kind of flowing back into our whole conversations, it's us having some of the flexibility and looking for opportunities. And I have to say that comes from the education we got at Tech there in the college. So we came away with a lot of great opportunities and processes.
Thank you, Carla. Keith?
As I was thinking about this, I kind of thought of it in the framework of, you know, career advice and kind of what y'all are looking towards and thinking about. And I guess for me, it's a mindset. The outside of the box thing for me is a mindset of not shying away from being a little bit afraid of what we're doing. And I think Ashley probably has some of that. Entrepreneurs are intrinsically good at pushing aside fear and just jumping in. But I'll give you two examples and what I'm thinking about. When I was in my undergrad at HDFS, it was when Hurricane Katrina and Rita hit Texas and Louisiana, and Lubbock opened shelters in that. And I went to help for a weekend, and I ended up staying for 2 months. And so I'm not saying you should skip class for 2 months, because that's what I did without telling anybody. But in that one in particular, I recognized, I think, a life-altering situation and something maybe of greater importance to me to be a part of. And it was a life-altering and career-altering experience for me. And there were those relationship connections that happened and all that, you know, I just kind of lucked out on that. And I had great professors that took care of me and helped me out later. But that was a situation where I wasn't afraid of something that was way outside the box. And I kind of just took what was, I felt like, the most important thing, and it ended up being very influential on my life. And really coming to my job now and stepping out of what I had done before into a role that's probably unique for a school district in the country. It just doesn't exist, and creating something different and useful out of it. And the person that hired me quit before I started, by the way. So that was a whole other thing to deal with. But that was my mindset coming here, was this job is scary. It's different, it's unsure, but that means it's stretching me and growing me, and I'm going to develop new skills and things that I hadn't. And with COVID in mind, since that's where we're sitting, of course, school districts shut down around spring break last year by mandate, in Texas at least. And so we have over 10,000 students at Friendship, and we found ourselves in a crisis related to food security. And so I run the ancillary food programs, the donated food programs around our district as part of what I do. And so those changed a lot, but we, outside of the box, stepped into curbside feeding, and the state and national governments made those things possible. And so we ended up serving 289,000 meals between that shutdown, that spring break time, and the end of the summer. And a lot of that was due in part to volunteers coming and helping us physically do that. And so that was something that stretched our whole thought process as a school district of how to serve kids, how to serve families, what we do on a daily basis, and who can help us do those things. Where volunteers have been a whole different ballgame in school districts before, in this one, we asked them to prop us up in a big way. And so I think that all of that kind of comes together, and not being afraid to just try something crazy or way I don't really like out of the box as a term, but just something that stretches you. Try to find that perspective and look at that and say, am I scared of this because I can't do it, or because I think I can't do it? And I think that can guide you a little bit career-wise.
Thank you, Keith. Holly.
I do this all day and I still can't unmute. So yes, I think I've had a couple of thoughts on this, especially as like Keith was talking and Sharon, that I think this degree really sets you up to be able to think outside of the box. Like it kind of shapes you to think differently, maybe look at those opportunities, but really what Keith said about kind of sitting in that uncomfortable spot of, you know, maybe seeking out things that you wouldn't normally could totally change your life. So I just wanted to kind of reiterate that. But for me personally, I know this whole year for everybody has pushed us to have to think outside of the box, to think differently about things. And I see a lot of familiar faces in here of my own students. And so they're kind of in this process with me as I've tried to move into thinking differently about how we teach and you know, how y'all learn. And so that's something that I think is lifelong too, is that if we can just continue to think outside of the box, we can continue to move forward as you know, a community, as people, and even in like learning and teaching, you know, we've had to really adjust ourselves. So for me, it's been about, I've had to kind of think about that different perspective. How are other people thinking, and how does that change what I do? So I don't know if that really answers the question, but I think that I like so much about this degree and HDFS is it really shapes you to be able to think outside of the box, because that's what we do. We look at all perspectives. We are including all different factors here and considering those and reasoning. So I think y'all are going to be set up to be able to do this throughout your careers too.
Thank you, Holly. And Ashley, will you share some experiences that you had?
Yeah, I appreciate all the commentary. I think that's all great advice and perspective. So my dad's always told me a good dose of fear will drive you hard and a long way. And kind of to piggyback on what Keith was saying too, you know, like I was nervous doing this today. I mean, you know, I feel like we have the tendency, you know, on Zoom and virtual meetings to think that everybody has it together, right? I mean, we're real people, and you should also market yourself as a real person. And you know, when you're interfacing with your potential employers at the beginning, and fear has a healthy dose of fear has helped me a lot this year. So thinking outside the box, oh dear. So when the pandemic started last, March, I cannot believe we're coming up on a year. Our spring break was that next week. And I founded this school on the Reggio Emilia philosophy of learning, which is quite literally outside of the box. I mean, we're in no worksheet zone. It's all project-based learning, and it's all about the process, right? Not the product. And the skills they acquire during the process. And, you know, here I am thinking, okay, we've got these parents who need help. You know, they're trying to juggle and wear all these hats. And we founded ourselves on experiential learning. How am I going to do this? Through the internet, right? Well, our teachers, y'all, I mean, they're just amazing people. We worked together to launch our over their spring break. We worked together to launch a really, really strong asynchronous distance learning experience. And we launched our first Spanish program through that too. And you want to talk about being, nervous and having fear, like, are parents going to stop paying? What am I going to do with the teacher payroll? I mean, those were very real concerns. And we started having supply drives to supplement the learning. So we started having those on the weekends. And so our teachers were having to turn their weekly outlines. That's what we consider our lesson plans. They were having to turn their outlines in a week in advance and plan a week in advance so that we could get our Amazon orders in for the supply drives. So you would see this long line of cars coming in, and everyone just had that deer in the headlights look. And then every morning I would wake up and check our back channel Seesaw to make sure, there weren't any grammatical errors. I mean, we were really vulnerable, right, as an organization. And I'm happy to say they hit it out of the park. It was very tough. People joke with me all the time that we could have a reality show here based on preschool parents. And I'm here to tell you, preschool parents require you to think outside of the box many hours of the day. But you can't be scared of it. You have to embrace it, right? And have fun with it. Just be open to it, open to new modalities.
Thank
always.
you, Ashley. I've been watching the chat, so we have a question from somebody. Lily had to leave, but she wanted to know if any of you have used your degree for mission work overseas and how that looked like. So if we can very kind of quickly address the question, if you had anything to share about that. Our experiences overseas.
Dr. Trejos, this isn't my personal experience, but I do know of a specific HDFS alum who has done exactly that. They went on to further their education through a seminary degree and then chose to move overseas with their family. So I definitely know that is something, if you want to pursue this degree, gives you the skill sets to know how to work in an intercultural environment. So.
Thank you, Caroline. And even though I'm not in the panel, I have had experience myself working overseas, not necessarily as a missionaire, but working on research and community work. And yes, this degree definitely prepares you to work in the field. We have another question here from Reagan, and she said, I have struggled with this last year trying to figure out what I'm good at and what I love and how to combine the two into a career path. What advice or tips do you have for someone who loves HDFS and the program, but has no idea what career they want to pursue? Who wants to jump in? Feel free to jump in, panelists.
I can jump in for a minute, and I don't know if this is the best advice. I think when you come out, just picking something, and I think some of my age group you kind of got into a job and you thought you'd do that job for the rest of your life, and that's not really true anymore. And giving yourself some flexibility, knowing that you may take a position and do something, you may not be there for the rest of your life, but for now, this is a good fit for you, and it may not ring all the bells, but it's a good fit. It helps pay some of the bills, and you may enjoy some of the work, but it may create other opportunity for you while you're doing it. And you never know what that can lead to. So I think there's this pressure sometimes when you're at the edge of graduation. And I mean, I saw it with myself and my daughter and nieces and nephews and stuff, that you've got to have that job right when you come out. Well, you probably do need a job because there's bills to pay, but it may not be the job that is the end all live all, but this position may get you to that next step where you're really starting to do some of the work you want to do.
And I just want to kind of mention something on that too. I think the sooner that you can volunteer or go and be a part of an organization that you think even you might be interested in. I know it's so hard right now, which is such a barrier for y'all, but just getting involved in something that you might be interested in, whether it be, children or adolescents or, certain nonprofits, volunteering, and you can find pretty quickly if you like it or you don't like it. And I think that may help you as you kind of decide what career path you want to go into.
Yeah, do stuff. And as much as you can and just try things. And Sharon and can tell you more about the Volunteer Center, but you have a great resource that's connected to every nonprofit in our community to connect you and to do some of those things. But for me, I was reading the questions about your, finding what you love and some of that stuff. And I had no idea until I was 25. And, I kind of fell into more school, not sure. And I had thought about a master's in social work, which Tech didn't have. And I just wasn't sure the direction I wanted to go. I remember kind of the moment I did a congressional internship during my master's. I was in a reception in Washington, DC that I think it was the pork producers were putting on. And I ended up in a conversation at a cocktail table with the Congresswoman at large from Wyoming. And it was just the most random, kind of situation. And our conversation was centered around Stephen Colbert because she had gone on his show when he had the Colbert Report, because she's the only congressperson from Wyoming. There's only one of her. So that was our conversation. But I walked out, and where my roommates were very uncomfortable, I was not. And I realized communications was something that I was good at and interested in and probably could figure out a way to use it. And then HDFS brought me the people service side that I always have kind of stuck around, and making a difference is a big motivator for me. So I say all that to say, just try some things, get some experience. And when you get into a job, which you will have to pay the bills sooner or later, whatever it is, the path, in my opinion, the dream, as you walk through a career, is to continue looking for opportunities that give you more of what you enjoy and what you want to do daily, and less of the things that you don't. And you'll start with a lot of things that you probably don't want to do. And then as you move along, find more and more of the things that'll make you happy. And then the third leg of that stool of that passion and talent is the financial motivator. And at some point you'll realize, there's a balance within all of them. And the financial piece doesn't always overpower the other two when you find happiness and fulfillment in what you do. So I know that's not, a pathway for you to get there, but getting involved in things and getting some experiences will give you those perspectives. And it does not have to be tomorrow. Again, there's plenty of time, and your first job that you get out of college does not define the rest of your career.
Thank you, Keith. We have a couple more questions here. One is from Rachel. What careers they can pursue directly out of college with an HDFS degree? And then we have a question from Vanessa that is a little bit similar. She says, even though I'm a human development and family sciences major, I don't have a concentration in teaching or early childhood. What are some other things I can do? So the next question actually falls into this. So I want you to answer the next question, thinking about the two questions that were posed by our participants. So the next question is, you graduated and now what? Next steps. And I will encourage you to keep that in mind that we are in COVID time. So if you want to share some tips about, what to do and what will be some of the challenges that you may be facing now applying for jobs. So let's start with Holly.
Yeah, so I'm going to bring that graduate school perspective here because that's the route that I took. So it's you kind of need to know a little bit ahead of time, depending on when you're graduating. You can also take a break, that's a piece too, and something that I did. But just knowing what that process is, what that looks like, what are the applications, where do you want to apply, what are the programs that you want. So that kind of also entails you needing to get those letters of recommendation, setting up your resume, CV, knowing, what is needed to apply. And so that does take a lot of upfront work and it's going to cost some money too. That's something you have to be aware of too when you apply to graduate school. There's usually fees associated with that. So I think just knowing, again, if you're going to take that route, knowing what kind of steps you need to do. And so talking with your academic advisor is a good place to start. Even contacting, your instructors or professors, they may be helpful as well. So just knowing kind of what to do in that process will be good for you. So if y'all have questions about that, I'm always happy and available to help y'all with kind of that route, especially.
Thank you, Holly. Carla, will you give us some tips about what to do now that you graduate, next steps in COVID times?
Well, I think next, I'm sitting there in my mind and I'm thinking, and I thought, if you're graduated and you're doing, I'm hoping that you are starting to network as much as you possibly can. and you can do that during COVID. You know, whether it's LinkedIn or whatever the process is or system you want to use. I would leave nothing uncovered. I mean, I think back, I am a firm believer that when I did my practicum right at the end, that the person that I reported to helped me tremendously in getting a job in another city. They were a reference even for me. Professors and instructors, going to them, you know, you've spent years with them now. They see you in class, they know you. You know, any of that and getting feedback from them on help and direction, I think is just fabulous. And then part of me is like, you know, don't discount going on and getting another degree, your master's. This is, you know, I think it gets harder when you get out of school. If you want to go back to school, this is just my opinion. But it doesn't mean someone like me is still not in the back of my mind thinking, ooh, I'd love to get my master's. You know, so and I wouldn't knock it. I think there's great opportunity. And I think tech has such wonderful programs that in getting your master's in our college, for example. But I think making those connections and tying them up and getting getting good references and getting good connections, you might be amazed at what might open for you. And I would just say, and then I'll be quiet, let the next one go. Don't be shy. You know, I mean, I need to list my email in here. Don't be shy about talking to alum. And tech has a great alum. I mean, and you need to use it and abuse it, as I say. So please, you know, and I'll list my email in here. I don't ever mind getting emails. So.
Thank you, Carla. How about you, Sharon? Any tips that you want to share with us?
Well, I don't want to miss the chance that Keith opened the door on about volunteering. So volunteer, volunteer, volunteer. The world needs what you've got to offer. And if while you're in Lubbock, you can connect at the Volunteer Center of Lubbock, and I'll put our website in the chat because there are a growing number of things to do actually to volunteer. Yeah, so volunteer. I was thinking about the question about, well, what can I do with this degree? And I'm not and the first thing that came to my mind was, what can you not do with this degree? I mean, people, you literally can do any job that you're interested in doing and bring value to any business. The trick is that you're the one that's selling yourself. And so you have to have confidence and you have to be very clear about the value that you bring to whoever you're trying to connect with. And they're the skills, and they're going to list those. They're going to say, I want blah, blah, blah. Well, if you don't have those skills and you're not interested in that, it's not a good fit. So don't waste anybody's time. But if you do have those skills, or you can connect the dots on how you have those skills, and even more importantly, if you can say, here's why I'm a great fit for this job. This is what I could bring to you. And this is what I've learned. And the relationship skills that you people have learned through this program, the project planning and implementation skills that you've learned, you know, go back through those things. It's not just the name of the class you took, but it's working on a team. It's building relationships. It's communication skills. And those kinds of things apply to every job there is. And but you've got to be the one to connect the dots on that within that interview and that relationship. The last thing I'll say is to jump onto what Keith had mentioned about the importance of relationships. It is always, always about relationships. Sometimes I talk to people and they're like, oh, well, I don't want to, you know, my dad has this company, but my mom has this business, but I don't want to do that. I want to, you know, nobody's getting jobs these days unless they know somebody. And, everybody on paper is on paper, but you have got to have relationships with people, I think, often to even get in the door anywhere. So that is a good thing. Tap into all of your networks, take advantage of all of the people and that have said, give me a call, or just have a visit with them. I'm graduating. What advice do you have for me? You can tell we all love to talk. We love to give advice. So, call some people that you admire and that you see leading the kinds of lives that fit for you, and say, I'm looking for advice. What have you got for me? I'm open.
Thank you, Sharon. Ashley, any tips?
Yes, I was looking at Vanessa's comment, Vanessa Whitley. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And I want to piggyback on the volunteer suggestion. So I was thinking, since you are a Spanish minor and you're awaiting nursing school acceptance, so congratulations, that's awesome too, especially in this climate. I was thinking you could reach out to the medical school and the child life specialist department and perhaps read books in Spanish to the kids, or even I don't know with the COVID climate, but I mean, I know the child life specialist department, that's still very important to connect with those children. So I'm not sure if you're interested in early childhood or what, but a little story I want to share real quick. Someone I just hired in December, she graduated from UT Austin in May. And so that was right when, everything started, and she had a teaching degree. So she, I believe, she got on care.com, and someone, he's actually pretty big or high up into Google marketing. He was organizing a pod for his daughter and 6 of her friends. And so he hired Ivy to facilitate this pod. Well, they've all decided to send their students back for in-person instruction, and she is pursuing her master's now in social work. And so he called me, again, word of mouth, friend of a friend. He lives in a neighborhood of some students that attend Wonderwell. And he said, okay, I have this just amazing girl who, she even did a play and a performance. The pod put on a play and a performance as their culminating project in December. And he was like, it's so hard. How can we help her, find a position? And so we interviewed her, and she is now here at Wonderwell, and she is just outstanding. And she's going to start our first ever music program. So you really don't ever know. Who would have thought, right? That here she is graduating. COVID had just started. She, had a pod in someone's garage, for her first semester of teaching. And she said, speaking of fear, she's like, I was scared, here I am, completed this, amazing degree, and it just didn't look very enticing. But she said, I had so much fun and realized that relationships really are the essence of teaching, because these kids really needed an outlet. Here we are in the garage, and not much to do. So she's like, and can you imagine, that being your first year teaching? So she was doing fitness, PE, music, all of it. And she surprised the pod parents with that play and that performance. And I just thought that was such a great story of, resilience, and also go get her. You know what? Yes, I'm, thankful to have a job in this climate, but I want to make a difference. So in my opinion, going back to the outside of the box thing, Ivy really hit that one home. So, and I feel like she made such an impression on the dad that, he was just willing to vouch for her on the highest level. So, she really connected with him in special ways.
Thank you, Ashley. Keith, any tips about what to do now that you are in the job market and be mindful of COVID?
I don't know about COVID, but as far as being mindful, but I would think, I agree with everything that's been said. A couple of things about grad school. I mean, view it as an investment in your future, and if it's right for you, don't be afraid of it. I went straight into graduate school, but I spent about 5 years finishing. So between working full time, a couple of internships, I took a year basically off at the end before I finished. I think that it was more enriching for me that I was getting professional experience while also getting an advanced degree. So that's always an option. It gave me a different perspective on a lot of the things we were doing and talking about, which I enjoyed. And so there's one, just a tidbit for that option. And then I think everything else has covered it pretty well.
Thank you, Keith. We have a question from, let me find it here in the chat, about Alexandra. She said, what is the difference between HDFS undergraduate program versus the master's HDFS program? And, very quickly, I can say that the master's is more advanced in providing you with research skills. It makes you more marketable. Also, if you want to work in, sometimes even in contemplating any admin level type of positions in community work, and that also prepares you for that. Now, we will be very happy to provide you with additional information about our grad programs. We do have face-to-face programs here, master's and PhD. We also have online programs. So please don't be shy. We're doing this to let you know that we are here for you. We're a resource. So email us after. I will post my email there. But reach out again. We're really, really happy to be able to guide you properly and to be able to be part of your dreams and construct that future with you. So next question, and this is a very fun question, and I think we're going to appreciate this very much. So what not to say when you are looking for a job? Carla, what would you say about that?
I was sitting here thinking, because I knew this was coming up here. I think instead of like what not to say or what to say, my best advice to give people is to be honest. Don't tell me something you can do when you really can't do it. I'd rather you tell me I don't have experience in that. I'd be willing to learn. What kind of training do you give on that to help me do that? I mean, I'd much rather us have that kind of conversation and be honest around it. Tell me things that maybe aren't part of the job that you're applying for that you can do, that you have skills around and experiencing, because that can help tremendously in an organization. But to make sure we got plenty of time here for everybody to talk, I'd probably say my biggest thing is just be incredibly honest with me. And then my other little thing I would drop in here too is, if you don't know what I'm asking you, tell me you don't know what I'm talking about when I'm asking, or, and make me explain it to you. Because I think sometimes we, as I call it, we get in the alphabet jargon, and when you're in a business and it's like, well, we have a system that does, we call it the XYZ, and, don't just ask me what it is, and let's have a conversation of it. But I would say, be real honest with what you're telling me, and don't set yourself up for something that may not be exactly true.
Thank you, Carla. Sharon, what would you say about this? What to say, what not to say?
Okay. I would say there's several things that come to my mind. One is, on your resume and on any communications that you have, no grammatical errors. It should be perfect. The spelling should be perfect. The way you put words together, it should be perfect. It's very hard to get an interview with me if you've made grammatical errors on a resume. Even it doesn't matter how great you sound, because it tells me if you're not careful on this, what are you going to be careful on when it's coming out of my place of business? So that. If the job posting says no phone calls, do not call me. If it says no phone calls, they mean it. You need to communicate through your application, through the email, or whatever they've set up. Another thing is, if you're asking me for a reference, please don't wait until the last minute to do that. I'm happy to be references for all of my folks. I'm not happy when I have a day or two to do that. Please give a lot of notice if you're at, and don't list somebody as a reference if you haven't asked them to be that. Send them your updated stuff and go from there. Be very aware that we look at your social media stuff. So if you're, if you're about to be in the job market, clean all that stuff up. Delete it, get it, because we look at it, because it's like, your time is your time, but when you work for us, you're representing us in all parts of your life. So that social media thing is very important. On the references, I think when you list people as references, if it's your best friend, put it down as a personal reference rather than a list of, all your buddies. If I'm looking for how you are as a friend, I really like to know that. But I want to talk to people that have been your professors, people that you have worked with, people that have supervised you. Those are the folks that I'm also wanting to be clear of. So those are some tips for me.
Thank you, Sharon. Keith.
Really, probably my biggest one is echoing what Carla said, that don't misrepresent yourself in any way, and it's okay not to have every skill and everything, or feel like you have everything figured out. That's important. Like I said earlier, it's not a contest to get the job. It's a date, really, is probably a more appropriate comparison, to really get to know each other, and if the relationship is right, you don't want to walk into anything where you don't both know exactly what you're getting into. That's going to be the recipe for success. But otherwise, I mean, the only other thing I could think of is occasionally employers will kind of test your character a little bit, looking to see if you would be negative or talk negatively about an experience or another job experience or something like that. So try to avoid those things, not get into any sort of negative conversation about anything. But as far as what not to say, I think that's about all I have.
Thank you, Keith. How about you, Ashley?
Yes, I actually have a really good example that happened on Monday. But first I want to say one of the best things I've done is yes, I'm on social media all the time because I almost have to a fault for different reasons. But that's the first thing I do is go to your Facebook page, your Instagram, partly because of the pandemic. I want to, put a face to a name, right? But decrease your social media time and be well read. I mean, get outside your bubble, so to speak, like your program coursework. And instead of spending an hour on Facebook that night or Instagram or Snapchat, I would suggest connecting with a good podcast and maybe even switch things up a little bit and listen to some hiring podcasts. Like, what are, employers, how are they harnessing the power of virtual technology during this health climate, and look at it from their perspective. And there's lots of interviewing podcasts out there that are great. And also content specific blogs. For example, our whole philosophy of learning here is student led, right? Reggio Emilia philosophy of learning. And when someone comes in to interview and they ask me, or they think that Reggio Emilia is a person, and side note, Reggio Emilia is a town in northern Italy. But, that tells me that they haven't even lifted a finger to do any research. So there's a lot of content specific blogs out there about the radio approach. And, you should do more than surface level reading. I would give yourself a week at least to prepare for that interview, and also make notes, whether you're doing a virtual interview or an in-person interview. I don't expect applicants to come in here knowing everything. In fact, that turns me off. You should never be the smartest person in the room, right? And I like it when they take notes, and like they were saying, ask for clarification. If there's an acronym or a system or a process that you're not familiar with, I think the right way to say that is, tell me more. I would love to learn more about that. I don't know about that. There's a really good book out called Choice Words that I suggest for our preschool parents, and that was one of the most powerful phrases actually to use with children, but I find that it works really well. And also, and I'm speaking now through a teacher educator microphone, but I think if you're wanting to teach, I think what's so important and that sometimes unfortunately gets lost is, how am I going to be supported as a first year teacher? Do you have some sort of mentor program? Who can I connect with other than administrators, right? Because the stakes are higher with your administrators. You want to know that you have colleagues there who are reliable, inspiring, and that you can count on in a consistent way. So I do think that asking about that mentor program, that first year success, whatever that looks like in the industry that you're going into. And lastly, so the thing that happened on Monday, Austin has become the center for everyone from California is moving here, right? So Wonderwell is like 90% Californian, not quite, but almost. So they didn't know what to do on our Western day. Yesterday was Texas Independence Day. It was funny. You could spot the Californians, but we love them. So I have this girl, this applicant who found out about us through somebody, through an attending family. And she's in LA right now, and she wants to relocate back to Austin. And so her application was absolutely outstanding. No errors, very thought-provoking, very analytical. So then she emails me to, confirm that I had gotten it. And she used, such slang, vernacular, and jargon. And it immediately, I have to admit, turned me off. She used the word anywho in her email, and yup, YUP. And then her closing was thanks, exclamation mark. And to me, my colleagues and I write to each other sometimes like that, but we know each other and we have this job. But when that's your first foot forward, right? You want to be as warm and decisive as possible. So try to avoid that slang jargon. Do we all use it? Absolutely. But read the room, right? Know when to do that and when not to do that. And also, yes, please remember that cleaning up your social media goes beyond profile pictures and your name. Think about things that you've liked, groups, pages that you've liked. I would suggest viewing it from a different account somehow, just to make sure. You may not realize you have something on there. Again, I was in college once. I love to hang out at conference and party, and I'm not going to sit here and act like a saint, but you're real. But it's time to take that next step, right, and clean it up. On to the next very exciting portion of your life, and your email address too. I had someone email me with an email naming convention called Princess Sippy Cup. And so you definitely, is that going to be somebody I want guiding my students for, formative experiences? Absolutely not. So, give yourself every possible opportunity to get that first interview.
Thank you, Ashley. Holly, any tips?
I don't think I have too much to add to that. I think Carla made a good point, like being honest and also knowing what you're applying for and knowing that you fit that position. Like, you don't want to waste your time. You don't want to waste anybody else's time. And I think the other thing too is don't say you can't do something, kind of like Ashley mentioned, like being coachable, being teachable is a big thing. I think when you are applying, like showing that you can learn and be open to that change. So that's really all I have to add to that.
Thank you, Holly. So I'm trying to be very mindful of the time. We have about 10 more minutes to go, 9 in my computer. But are there any questions at this point before we ask our final remarks? Any questions that you want to ask, anything that, feel free to put in the chat, or you can speak up if that works better.
I have a question about something no one talked about. Was you guys talked a lot about networking and, reaching out and building your network, using your network to your advantage. What are ways students could build their networks? What are some, besides internships? I was thinking about informational type interviews. Is that something you guys would recommend for students to do during their time as a student?
I think that's a great idea. Informational interviews, I think, are great. I think the student organizations that are available. There's a broader network of organizations available outside of tech that are, various civic and interest group things. They're, on every topic from political affiliation groups to special interest of all different kinds. So, just go to stuff, go to First Friday and have conversations with people. And I think that thing of having conversations and learning how to have a conversation, that's a really important skill. And, how do you talk to somebody you never talked to before? And what are some questions? If you get it going, they're going to go. The people, again, people like to talk. They like to tell.
They do like to talk. She's
We
frozen.
lost her. Yes.
I was gonna just, sorry,
Go
I just
ahead,
wanted to mention that, like, getting involved in organizations, especially, in the college level, can open up opportunities for like conferences where you can then meet people who are at different universities who are maybe in the same field, but then again, there's a connection that who knows in the future if that's an opportunity for you. So absolutely reach out and be involved in as much as you can, I think.
Thank you. We have a question from Perry. Any tips about writing documents about yourself for jobs applications? I think that's go along with, how do you talk about yourself without bragging?
It's so hard.
Being honest. Yeah. I know it's one of the hardest things we'll learn to do, but you have to learn to blow your own horn in a way, and being honest, but again, not exaggerate. But I will let the panelists share any other tips that you may have.
I will say, sorry, go ahead, Ashley.
Oh, sorry. Well, I think back to like bringing something to showcase. A lot of people have digital portfolios, but in terms of talking about yourself, I would look at it as, let me show you what I can do and bring a specific experience, not some general, oh, look, here is a bulletin board I did, or I have good classroom management. Talk about a specific experience, maybe with a colleague, maybe with a parent, maybe with a student, and specifics are really intriguing. And also when you're kind of breaking the ice with a potential employer, everyone loves to be asked about their family, most everyone. And if you see that they have a picture on the wall, or maybe they just had a baby, or, they just got married or something, that's always a nice thing to start with. I see, you have, you just got married, or I see that your little boy just turned 3 or something. If that information is readily available to you, I would definitely use that as a hook. I think that's flattering, right? And everybody wants to talk about their family mostly.
I would jump on what Ashley said. I want to hear, I always love to hear about your successes, but I actually also like to hear about times that it wasn't a success and how you changed that, or how you dealt with that, or how you moved it around, because that tells me a whole lot too. So I always tell folks, don't be shy about telling me when you failed. That's okay. I like to hear about those because we all do that. So
to the question about writing about yourself, I think there's one, just using really good dynamic language in your resume, I think helps move that forward a little bit. On average, employers don't spend a whole lot of time looking at those. From an eye tracking standpoint, they go fast. And so, good concise bullets that also really talk about digging into your responsibilities and connect the dots for an employer as far as what you did and what it means. those should be customized for jobs, for industries. They shouldn't all be exactly the same. And then, really, like, I guess you're thinking a cover letter, things like that, when you're really talking about yourself. I like seeing some examples. Tell me about your skills and how great you are at doing them, and give me an example where you applied it. And I think that you just have to get over the idea of, tooting your own horn or worrying about that. That's what this is. You have to sell yourself. And generally in an interview, I acknowledge that, or, and that's just kind of my personality, to acknowledge that this is the time you get to do that, and so go for it. And also just in that interview frame, as we talked about a little bit, I much prefer an interview that goes way beyond the questions and turns into a conversation. I actually get frustrated working in a school district because we have prescribed interview questions, and I frustrate my colleagues because I never want to use those. So be prepared to move into a conversation and to ask questions. And if I see you open a Padfolio, if you walk in with a Padfolio and set it by your chair, it was just a waste of time to carry it in. If you open a Padfolio and it's full of notes and questions, and you've done some research, I'm impressed by that. And I know that it's going to be an interview that takes us different places. And my last piece on that, just because I mentioned interviews, I am a big fan of the question at the end of an interview, just asking if there's anything that there's a concern about, if there's anything we haven't addressed, if there's a reason I'm not the right applicant, or something you're worried about. And generally, employers will be pretty honest and give you something that they are thinking about that you haven't addressed, or something they're not sure about, or maybe you get a little bit of insight into how you're doing and where you stand in the pecking order of what they're thinking about. So I think that can be really helpful. But yeah, just get past the tooting your own horn idea and just do it, because you need to walk in with some level of confidence, not arrogance, but certainly confidence.
Thank you, Keith. I think that's a wonderful segue to ask our panelists in 30 seconds, and because I'm, again, minding the time, just any takeaway message. I know it's hard to do it in 30 seconds, but, a words of inspiration, or words of wisdom, very quick. Holly?
I just want to say, believe in yourself, believe in the degree you're getting, and know that you have skills to be successful. And so just don't forget that.
Thank you, Holly. Thank you. Carla?
I was going to say exactly what Holly said. I think we're probably all going to go along that line a little bit. Believing in yourself, and don't be afraid to ask a favor. Ask favors. That's and I mean, I put my email in here, and email me. Let you never know where that can go. So don't be shy about it.
Thank you, Carla. Sharon?
Choose to think of this as a great adventure. You don't have anything to be scared about. Going into this, and enjoy. You're not making a decision for the rest of your life. It's day by day.
Yes. Thank you, Sharon. Keith?
Yeah, just have confidence in that you have a great degree from a great place and a great department, and there's a lot of variety in what you bring to the table. And thinking about that little question earlier about nursing, and there's a lot of places you can get into that your skills paired with more skills that you learn along the way will be very valuable. And just know that there are those opportunities, and just go out with confidence to find them.
Thank you, Keith. And Ashley?
Well, I just think Texas Tech is an excellent school. So please know that. Go into this next portion of your career and your coursework knowing that. Be confident. And just, I hire character, right? Train skill. So I'm looking for people that are genuinely good people and who care about others. So like Keith was saying, when you give examples about your work, try to use examples that showcase your character, and not, talking negatively about past experiences, but instead reframing it in the light of, I embrace this as an opportunity to learn more about XYZ. Yeah, you're in a great place with great people, and I've enjoyed this a lot. And if you are looking to come to Austin, email me.
Thank you, Ashley. At this point,
Uh-huh.
we are just concluding. Dr. Master, do you have any final remarks that you want to share?
I'm sorry, it cut out.
I just would like to thank the panel again. It's just been an amazing hour and a half to listen to your sage advice and strategies and ideas and your enthusiasm. So thank you so much again. And to our students, please know that this is just the beginning. We will post this recording on our HDFS website. And again, I just want to encourage you, if you have any questions, please do reach out to us. We are real people. We want to help you. And so you may reach out to any of the faculty, any of the alumni, and we're here to encourage you and facilitate your career path. So thank you so much to all of you.
Thank you, Dr. Masters. I also want to say thank you. We have a luxury of a panel today. And, we have learned so much just by listening to your experiences, and you have inspired us, inspired the students. So feel free to reach out to us. Thank you again to our panelists. I would like to clap. I don't know how we clap in Zoom, but thank you again. We wish you that you have a wonderful rest of the week, and feel free to email us and reach out to us. We will continue doing these activities, and we're here for you. This is being recorded, so we will be released at some point, but thanks again, and I hope you all safe and enjoy the rest of the day. Bye-bye.